Welcome to the Politics Chicks podcast. I'm Monica Healy.
And I'm Christy Branham. Today's guest is Jennifer Farrell. Jennifer just finished her 20th year as a public school educator. In addition to teaching high school English, Jen has spent 16 of her 20 years directing high school theater. Jen served on the board of directors for Minnesota Thespians, a state affiliate of the Educational Theater Association, for 11 years, and as its chapter director for 6 of those years. Jen also works professionally as an actor and director with local community and summer stock theaters. Please join us in welcoming Jen to the Politics Chicks podcast. Hey, Jen, welcome to the show. We're so happy you're
Hi,
here.
Jen.
Thank you. Hi, Monica. I'm happy to be here.
Jen and I go kind of a little far back. We met through theater.
Yeah. So Christy and I, because the theater world is so small and so interconnected, when I came back to directing a few years ago, I was looking for a costumer, and I was at the moment doing a summer stock production of Mamma Mia. And a couple of the actors who were in the production with me had worked with Christy in a couple different other venues, and connected the two of us. And so Christy came out and costumed Guys and Dolls for me, and just became a great friendship. And we've kept in touch, and yeah, it's been wonderful.
I was just talking to another friend this morning, and I said that experience working with your kids at Chaska High School, where you teach, was probably my best experience as a costume designer. I love working with kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I get the most joy, and
Mm-hmm.
I really learned a lot from your kids. What a great group you have
Thank
over
you.
there.
I think they're pretty awesome too.
They are, and they were super professional first to begin with, which you don't expect from high school students, but just the whole
Mm-hmm.
experience. And I think the funnest part was going back, not as the costumer, but the kids being excited to see me and telling me what was up in their life. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the kids had me write a recommendation for him for college.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it was a great experience. So
That's wonderful. I think one of the things that people sometimes underestimate about kids is like what they actually are capable of when you give them the space, you give them the support, you give them the guidance and the opportunity. They can really surprise you, and not just in theater. I think writ large. um they want to prove themselves. They're searching, they're hungry, they're trying to figure things out, and they want a space to do that and people who will help them do that. And if you can give them that, um they can turn out some pretty incredible stuff.
I think Monica's seen that in her teaching. She's a
I bet.
TikToker. And some of the stuff that she has put out there with her kids on TikTok is pretty impressive. Do you
I
agree,
bet.
Monica, with Jen, with give the kids a chance and they'll reach the stars, I think is what Jen was trying to say.
Mhm.
Would you agree?
Oh,
Monica?
me. Sorry, I thought you were talking to Jen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure our experiences are somewhat different, with you with the high school and me with the littles. But I taught for 30 years, and over the time, it seemed like all those things from high school and middle school kept creeping down to the younger grades. So by last year, even the third graders, where it was skibbity toilet and Riz and all the slang that they were getting from their middle school and high school siblings. But yes, I would agree that they are capable of so much more than you might think they are. And if you set the
Yes.
bar,
Yeah.
they reach it, and they are proud of themselves when they
Mhm.
do reach that bar.
Yeah, we were this morning I was at some curriculum writing time with my colleagues, and we just rolled out a pre-AP curriculum this year, and we were a little nervous. And it was pre-AP, preparing all kids for AP classes for everyone, like regardless of skill level, for like special ed, multilingual learners, your what you would consider your on level kids, your advanced kids, everybody. And it is true that kind of like a rising tide raises all boats. We set the bar, and they did it. They grumbled a lot of times, but they did it. And the stuff we were just saying today, like looking at where the sophomores this year got to as opposed to where they were at the end of the previous year, heads and tails beyond what I thought they might be capable of. So yeah, I've seen that bear itself bear itself out in multiple ways. So yeah.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
I I truly believe in self-fulfilling prophecy, especially with kids.
Hmm.
And if you set expectations and have a limitation with those expectations, they'll make it to the limitation, but they won't go past it
Yep.
a lot of times.
Hmm.
So when you set it high and they've got to work for it, and then
Hmm.
what I love seeing is when you set it high and they achieve it and they go beyond it
Yes.
and they look
Yes.
back at themselves in amazement and they're just so proud of what
Hmm.
they've done.
100%.
Jen, can you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and your history with theater and how you ended up in education?
Yeah, for sure. Um, as far as education goes, I was one of those kids who knew from a young age that I wanted to be a teacher. Um, so I tell this story. This is really silly, but my dad traveled a lot for work, and he didn't have an office he went into. He had a home office, and he actually had in his home office this giant old copy machine. Like we're talking like massive, large copy machine. And when and it was just in the office, and we could go in the office anytime. We knew not to mess around with stuff on his desk or whatever. But I would play teacher with my stuffed animals and set them around the room. And I would hand write worksheets and go make copies of them on my dad's copy machine. And I thought I was so cool.
That is so awesome.
And I'm
That's
talking
something I
like
didn't
second
know
or
about
third
you.
grade, I was doing this. Like, so I think, yeah, I've always kind of known that education was where I wanted to go. Eventually, it became figuring out, do I want to do elementary, secondary, like where do I want to go? But I've always known education. Um, and my high school theater likes to joke. My high school theater director likes to joke. Senior year, she said, "Oh, Jen, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go teach high school English and direct theater." And that's exactly what I'm doing. And not a lot of, I don't know a lot of people who can say that, like, I'm doing exactly what I said I was going to be doing that early on. So I think I'm an outlier rather than the norm in that respect. So yeah, um, I have my I have my undergrad from the University of Minnesota Morris. Go Cougars! Um,
Woohoo.
Woohoo! And I have my master's in English education from the University of Minnesota. And I think, as Christy mentioned earlier, I just finished my 20th year as a public school educator, which is pretty wild. Um, so, so that's that's the educational background. Theater. My mom used to hate playing Barbies with me because I would tell her what the Barbies were supposed to say and what they were supposed to do.
You were a director before you knew you were a director.
Yes. And my mom used to get so irritated at me. And I'm like 2, 3, 4. And we laugh and I tell her, I'm like, well, clearly, mom, you just missed the signs. I was supposed to be a director. But I did dance and choir growing up. And then when I was in 6th grade, we were living in Tennessee at the time. And our church was huge, a giant church, and they would do a Christmas show every year. And they did the best Christmas pageant ever. And I got cast to play the mom role because I've been tall for the entirety of my childhood. And I just had a blast. It was so much fun. And I distinctly remember being in the hallway outside the sanctuary after the play, and someone from church, just a random congregation member, coming up and complimenting me on my performance and saying, "Well, have you ever thought about going into acting?" And I went, "No." And they said, "Well, you should. You're really good." And I went, "Okay." That was kind of it. um, so that was sort of my intro into it. And then I did theater through middle school and high school. I minored in theater in college, and basically just jumped right into directing my first year teaching. I directed Arsenic and Old Lace, good old classic standard theater piece. And yeah, theater is where I've found my people. It's my home, it's my safe space, it's where I exercise the creative muscles, which is really essential for me, for my well-being, is to find a creative outlet. Um, and then working with kids in combination with that has just been awesome to help them find that place, to develop those skills, to um, create a community in the school where they feel like they belong. So yeah, and I've done a little bit of, in addition to directing high school, I've done a little bit of acting and a little bit of community theater directing when I have time to do that as well. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, our
Mhm.
family got involved in theater when my kids were little because my youngest daughter is on the autism spectrum and was really having
Mhm.
problems with making friends and feeling accepted in the school community at a younger age. I think she was like in first or second grade when she did her first show. It was Children of Eden. I
Mhm.
remember that, which I love that show. It's so long, but it's the music is beautiful. And like you said, that's kind of where our family found our people. And even my son, we tried him in soccer. He was not an athlete, but put him on stage and give him a role and let him have the spotlight. And boy, did he shine. And I'm so grateful for the community that theater provided for my kids. Um, but more than that, um, I think theater provides a place for marginalized kids. Would you agree?
For
And
sure.
it's please don't let it escape anyone that this is Pride Month that we're celebrating right now. Which
Oh yeah.
a lot of people would like to say it's not Pride Month anymore, but you know what? I got my rainbow flag
Mhm.
outside my house right now, and I'll probably have a rainbow flag when we go protest for the
Mhm.
5051 protests. And
I've got mine
what do
hanging
you?
in my classroom.
Yep. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I'm so grateful that, your school district has been supportive of that because a lot of school districts have made teachers pull those things down.
Mhm.
Monica, what are your thoughts on that? Because as a music educator, you kind of deal in the same thing because you are choir director.
100%. It is a place for those kids to shine. And I'm guessing for both theater and music, you get kids that might struggle with some of their so-called core subjects. They're not the best at math and they're maybe not the best at history, but you put them on a stage or you put an instrument in their hand or put a microphone in their hand and they just come to life and they shine and they sparkle. And Christy mentioned her kids shining on that stage, and I think I was that kid, that give me the microphone, and that's where I felt most comfortable. And for those kids those marginalized kids, those LGBTQ kids, they need that so much.
Mhm. 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 Yeah, I think any I think of the kids that are in my room and I think of just how quiet some of them are, how withdrawn they are for whatever various and sundry reasons. But you give them a means to express themselves artistically. And you get, whether that is visual arts or music or dance or theater or whatever it happens to be, media arts, something like this. And all of a sudden you see this side of them and they blossom and they open up and they have something to be proud of. And also the research shows, and this is just writ large, this isn't even just performing arts or arts, that that if kids are involved in some kind of extracurricular or co-curricular activity, whether it's sports, whether it's academic teams, whether it's arts, they're more engaged in the school community, they're more likely to show up to school, and they do better in their classes. These types of things are essential for kids to feel a sense of community and a sense of belonging when they're at school. And when they feel those things, the academics follows.
I think those are the things that make us human. And during the pandemic, during lockdown, when the world was shut down, what did we turn to? We turned to the arts. We turned to literature and music and film and visual arts because that's what makes us human and makes us feel connected even when we can't be physically connected. It's that connection that we all long for.
And you think back to, I mean, our whole history as a species is ties back to storytelling. That's what we've always been doing. That is how knowledge is spread. That is how we connect with each other, as we tell stories, whether it's, sitting around a campfire, talk, or sitting around a kitchen table telling stories about our day over dinner, or it's this huge big production on stage, or it's stories told through the visual means of art, or the means of music, or whatever it is. It is our capacity to hear each other's stories and tell those stories. I think it's one of the things that, like you said, that it is inherently human. Um, and it's how we connect with each other, and it's how we make sense of the world around us. And theater is a really important part of that. I think it's really cool that theater is the art form that pulls in all of the other art forms, right? You have the visual
Mhm.
artists in theater. You've got your costume designers like Christy. You've got your scenic designers, lighting and sound. You've got the music piece if you're doing musical theater. Even if you're not doing musical theater, you've got, music sets the score for a piece. You've got your dancers and movement and all of these various, and even modern day theater making more use of video and projection and film and the multimedia sort of technologies that is really coming into it. Theater is the ultimate artistic collaboration. Um, and and that is how now we share those stories that we want to share. And to your point about it being Pride Month and everything, that theater does a great job of telling stories that need to be shared, and
Yes.
that it gives people, it gives creatives, it gives some of these marginalized communities the opportunity to tell their story and to help others empathize with where they are and what they've been through, and what their lives have been like, in the same way that our ancient ancestors did when they, sat around the fire and told stories.
Yeah. And as a parent and, working as a creative,
Mm-hmm.
part of a team for theater, especially working with children, what I, as a parent, found most notable is the fact that kids can show up to theater and express themselves and be their authentic selves without fear of teasing,
Mm-hmm.
without fear of retribution, without
Mm-hmm.
fear of being ostracized.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. I mean, there, I don't think any of the, maybe one of them came out to me there, but there, when I worked with your group of kids, there were several kids. There was a trans student,
Mm-hmm.
who I had to have a conversation with, frankly, because at the time I was, what, 51 years? How many years ago was Guys and
four
Dolls? I can't even.
4 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah. So I was
Yeah.
51 at the time, and pronouns are hard for people our age.
Yes.
It,
Yes.
it really is hard, and um, it was a person who was born female, and so they were they identified as male, and I had to have a conversation with them in the beginning and say, listen, I respect this part of you. If I screw up, if I use the wrong pronoun, if I say
Mm-hmm.
anything that makes you feel like I'm not honoring who you are, first
Mm-hmm.
of all, come to me so that I can apologize to you. But please understand that that is not me not seeing you. That is
Mm-hmm.
me struggling with the fact that my 51-year-old brain has got to
Yes.
learn to function in this new paradigm.
We're working
And
against 40, 50 years of lived experience and having to reprogram ourselves, and our brains aren't
and I think,
as young as they once were, so they don't reprogram as quick.
yeah. And I think one of the other things that I found so joyful is that the there was a mix of gay and straight kids in the cast, and they all had a sense of camaraderie. There was
Oh, for
no
sure.
separation between the gay kids and the straight kids. It
No.
was, they were all
No.
theater kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I one thing that I will say about theater kids is they are compassionate. They learn compassion through theater. They
I
learn
think that
empathy.
that's particularly important in the times we're living in. Um, can we go back to precedented times, please? Because I'm exhausted.
I say that all the time.
Oh
Can we
my
please
God.
go back to precedented times? I'm sick of this
I,
unprecedented
100%.
bullshit.
yes, yes.
You
I don't
can
want to live
swear, by
through
the way.
No.
history anymore. Like I just want
Yeah, and you can
to.
swear on this podcast. We
Oh,
swear.
good.
So
Okay,
if you feel
excellent.
the need, you can.
Okay. Um, but I think that we've become so polarized, right? That we don't listen to each other. Um, and it's hard. And I think that one of the great things that theater can do is it does it builds empathy. As an actor, you literally have to put yourself in someone else's shoes in order to play. Okay, I've got a great story to illustrate this.
We love stories.
Yay. Okay, so my first 3 years teaching, I was at Maple Grove Senior High School, which is in Monica's old district. And my
That's where I
third year,
live.
yeah, is where you live.
Monica and I,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. And my third year directing, I directed a production of the Laramie Project. And for those of your listeners who might not be familiar, the Laramie Project is a piece that explores the death of Matthew Shepard back in 1999. It was one of the first, it's not the first hate crime, but it was one of the first LGBTQ hate crimes that received major media attention that I remember. And so this theater company went out to Laramie, Wyoming, which is where it happened, and they spent about a year and a half interviewing people from around the community about what had happened. And then they created, it's essentially like this docudrama. It's like a documentary, except on stage. And you have a group of actors who play 80 plus characters. So I think I had 12 or 15 actors that played 80 plus characters. And in one of the scenes, um, and his name is escaping me right now, but he's the guy who was the head of the Westboro Baptist Church,
yeah,
who ran the God Hates You Know What.com website.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and he showed up in Laramie and did a protest outside of um, Matthew's funeral. And so he shows up in the play. And the young woman who I had play that role is the daughter of two dads. And she had Fred Phelps, that's his name, Reverend Fred Phelps.
Yeah.
She had a really difficult time at first because we did the character development. We dug into who are these people, and she said, Miss Farrell, I'm just having the hardest time because I mean this guy, like in my head, he eats bolts for breakfast, and I was like, I get why personally you feel that way because this man is opposed to everything that your family is, right? But as an actor, you've got to set that aside and you've got to look at his perspective. He doesn't see himself as the villain. He sees himself as the hero. Um and we dug in and she later told me, she said, I thought for a while that he ate bolts for breakfast and was just this awful human, but the truth of the matter is he probably had oatmeal for breakfast. And he probably really loves his kids. And he thinks he's doing the right thing. And that ability for a 17-year-old kid to do that level of perspective taking and find that empathy for someone who she, on a political scale, so vehemently disagrees with is incredible. And I think that
Yes.
that's one of the great things that theater does for students and for the youth is teaches them how to perspective take, teaches them how to put themselves in someone else's shoes and think about, why is this person behaving in this way? What's going on here? Can I see this from their angle? Um, and we need more of that these days. We need way, way,
We
way, way,
do.
way more of that.
We do. And when Monica was flying back, she just got back from Europe, by the way. She's a jet
Yeah,
setter. She just
very
got back
fancy.
from the UK and Ireland. And she texted me and said,
I
you
did.
watched Milk,
Yep.
didn't you? On one of, yeah. Um, and the irony of all ironies is that Pete Hegseth is attempting to remove
Yeah.
the name. Is it
Yeah.
Harvey Milk?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is Harvey
Yeah.
Milk's name from a ship. And for
Mm-hmm.
those who don't know, Harvey Milk was an LGBTQ activist, I believe in the night. I want to say in the
He
1970s
died
or
in the late
80s, or was it
70s.
even the
Late
90s?
60s or yeah, late
Okay.
60s, early
Dianne
70s, I think.
Feinstein was actually the lawmaker that announced his death and the mayor of San Francisco. She was, I
Oh
think, her
wow.
first year in office. Yeah.
Would say so. Yeah. And
And
was he
he
involved in
too.
like he was involved in the Stonewall riots? And was he around for that or was
Uh,
that later? Am I getting my history confused?
yeah.
I think he was
Stonewall is
West
East
Coast and
Coast. Yep.
Stonewall was East
You're
Coast,
right.
wasn't
You're
it?
right. I'm not a history
Yeah.
teacher. I'm an English teacher. I don't know dates.
But with that said, Harvey Milk himself experienced violence
Oh yeah.
because he was gay.
Mm-hmm.
And Monica and I were talking about that even as we were recording. Before this interview, we actually recorded another episode
Mm-hmm.
because we're power plan. We're doing the whole production thing and doing the pre-recording and the post-recording and all
Yay.
that.
You're so
And we were
fancy.
talking. I know, right?
Yeah.
So people are going to see us wearing the same clothes in 2
I think
episodes.
that
So
you
if you
don't have
see
any
that,
other wardrobe.
right. Um, but one of the things that we just talked about in the episode that we just recorded was the permission structure that has been established in this country with the culture wars that are going on and the new powers that be that
Mm-hmm.
make it okay to marginalize people based on
Mm-hmm.
otherness, based
Mm-hmm.
on sexual preference, based on skin color, based
Mm-hmm.
on religion, based
Mm-hmm.
on you name it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how if you guys want to touch that subject, but I think that's really related to this whole thing
Mm-hmm.
and what we're talking about, empathy and compassion.
When I watched Milk, I found myself in tears. So I'm sitting on a plane and crying, and the tears were partly for his bravery and everything that he did, but then it was also for watching some of that progress disintegrate in front of our very eyes. I feel like we are going backwards. All the progress that the likes of Harvey Milk and others like him have made, and how disheartening it is to watch us slide backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that just made me think of one of my friends who is a member of the LGBTQ community. One of the first things that they posted on Facebook after all of this started was, I'm now politics and I shouldn't be politics.
Mm-hmm.
And these
And
people are
kids
being
are
drugged
politics.
Mm-hmm.
and kids are politics.
And they
And,
no.
And education is politics.
this.
I
Mhm.
mean, in a certain
It is.
sense, everything is political because you're talking about power and you're talking about representation. And that way, everything is political. And it always has been. I think the more accurate way to say it in my mind might be that everything is becoming politically weaponized.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a
Yes.
distinction.
I'm gonna
So, yeah.
I'm going to jump back to Matthew Shepard,
No,
just
go ahead.
because you brought that up. My kids graduated from Wayzata High School, and Rebecca Weifels had some connections with Greg Hella Johnson, who is a renowned choral composer. And she brought him to the high school, and his choir worked with the Wayzata choir, and they did Considering Matthew Shepard, which is the musical version of the Laramie Project. Like literally, it is. It takes the Laramie Project, and it's a choral cantata.
I didn't know
It's
there were.
fabulous.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
That's so
picture,
cool.
Wayzata High School is, this is a very affluent area, and generally speaking, affluent areas tend to be a
Mhm.
little more conservative. So this production of this
Yep.
incredibly powerful and emotional piece, and I'm going to cry. You could have heard a pin drop at the end of this
Aw.
performance because it was so
Mhm.
incredibly moving. And that's what the
Mhm.
arts do for us. And we need more of that.
Mhm.
I'm such a sap. I'm sorry.
Yep. Yes.
Monica and I have admitted publicly that we're both criers. So this is a safe space. If you need to cry, you need to cry here. And
Good to
that's
know.
I
Feel the feels.
and I think Exactly. And that's also what the arts do is they connect us with our emotions in a different way. I think a lot of us have the sense of separation we've had since COVID has created a condition where a lot of us are living emotion vicariously.
Hmm.
We're watching television programs, we're
Hmm.
watching the news, we're, on social media. And so often we don't take the time to actually connect with our own emotions and understand that the connection between how we're feeling and what we're seeing. Would you guys agree?
It's the communal aspect as well,
Hmm.
like being in community with people who are feeling their feels. Whether it's your, I took kids to the International Thespian Conference a number of years ago, which again is it's a high school theater festival. It's run by the Educational Theater Association. It's a week long. It's every bit as insane as you might think it is, but in the best possible way. Um, and we were seeing a production. We were watching Big Fish, which I know Christy has costumed.
I've
Um,
costumed it twice. I love that show.
yes,
Be the
and
hero of your story.
yes, and we're in this giant auditorium at the University of Nebraska Lincoln campus, like 2,000, 3,000 people in this theater, and they're all high schoolers, high school theater kids. And they get to the song in Big Fish, and I can never remember the name of the song. It's the one the wife sings, and it just about like just
I don't
stay
need a
here with
roof.
me. I don't need a
It's
roof.
called
It's that one,
I don't need a roof.
and it was so beautifully. It's so simply staged, where she was like sitting on the front porch, and he sat next to her with his head in her lap, and she just saying this, like I don't need anything, I just need you, right? And you get to the end and the lights go down in the number and everyone cheers, but then after the cheering all you hear in the theater is whole including me, the whole room is just tears. And like, but the power of that, to be
Yes.
in a, or in the opposite side too, the power to be in a space where where it's a hilarious show and everyone is laughing together, like that communal thing where you are together in the same space and you're experiencing emotions together, and there's something really human and cathartic about that theater does. That's
I
really,
had a moment like that
yeah.
at Dear Evan Hansen.
Yep.
The end of Act 1, You Will Be Found.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we went to the matinee, so it was a bunch of blue hairs, but it was also a bunch of we're Gen Xers, right? So it was like rows and rows. All the people behind us were Gen Xers, right? So they were our generation, and all of us after the lights and the curtain went down from You Will Be Found were sobbing, including my
Mm-hmm.
husband. He's going to kill me for saying that. But even men, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was such a visceral experience
Yes.
experiencing that song. It was an outer experience, but at the same time the power of that moment was internal. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
is what you and Monica are both talking about, that
Yes.
that and it's cathartic, isn't it, to
Mm-hmm.
express those emotions and allow yourself to cry.
Yeah.
um I think it's so important. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we've taught our children to put their best face forward and only show the world what's worth putting on social media, when
Mm-hmm.
in reality life is messy, and
Mm-hmm.
we're messy, and we're
Mm-hmm.
far from perfect, and the expectations a bit set so high that I think a lot of times people struggle to be authentic regardless of the other issues you may have, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
sexual identity or
Mm-hmm.
you know or dealing with xenophobia or racism.
Mm-hmm.
We've set the
Yeah.
standard where people are expected to be perfect.
There's some irony there, isn't there? That where in the theater the actors are pretending to be someone else, but it also allows them to be their most real, authentic selves.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I think if you're doing acting right, and that whether you're students, adults, whatever, part of it is tapping you find something in that character that you're playing that is also a part of you, and you bring that in to the character, and that's what makes the character a character and not a caricature, that there is something real and human and recognizable. And good actors are able to find those things and bring those in, to help flesh out what's going on. And that's also a really, not that I am not an advocate of like theater as therapy per se, but it is an opportunity, a safe space for kids to, and adults, um to explore elements of their personalities, and try different things on in a safe space. We all know that high school is all about, and middle school as well, is all about figuring out who you are and where do you belong. And throughout those years, kids try on how many different personas, and they try to fit in with this group and that group, and etc. And theater is one of those spaces where they can do that without judgment, where they can take on the role of whatever, and play around with that, and then at the end of the day walk away and say, I really learned something about myself from this process. I was given the space, I was given the support, the space was safe, um, to play and to try things. And that's one of the cool things, I think, is, um, that at 15, 16, 17, 18, they're still allowed to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, getting back to the please, someone say the word for me.
Politicization.
Politicization.
Oh boy.
Ah!
Political
Politicization.
politicalization.
Whatever it is. Bringing politics into education. Let's just like,
That. Yes.
I'm leaving this section in, right? Because we need a little comic relief. Three
Yes.
grown, educated women can't say the
Who
word.
can't
That
pronounce words?
life is messy. Being
Yes.
human is messy.
Yes, it is.
Bringing that back in, let's talk about finances and funding for the
Hmm.
arts, especially in
Hmm.
schools.
Hmm.
Um, you're really fortunate, Jen, because you've got a bunch of parents, and especially with John, who
Yes.
is the
Our
would
activities
be
director.
yeah,
Yeah.
he is his first of all, his son was involved in theater. Will is a
Yes.
superstar.
Yep.
And just having that support from the school and having that support from the parents is so much.
Yes.
But then I look at Monica and you know, music teachers in Osseo, did you teach at more than one school, or were you just at one school? Because I have a couple of friends who are music teachers that they would bounce around.
I was in one school, and that's an interesting comparison between Minnesota and California. Jen, you may not know this. My husband has taken a temporary assignment. So I'm in Minnesota right now, but for the next 11 months, we are going to be spending the majority of our time in California. And I looked at subbing, because I need community, and I love to teach. And in California, every single elementary music teacher has multiple schools, sometimes 5, sometimes 7. Whereas here in Minnesota, we are so lucky. I had one building I was full time at. I saw my kids every other day for half an hour. So over the course of the year, I got to do a lot with them. And I had fabulous instruments and equipment. And we aren't all that lucky across the education spectrum for sure. So it sounds like you have been fortunate too, Jen.
Yeah, I've been fairly fortunate. So like Christy said earlier, I teach at Chaska High School, and that's where I direct. And I directed for about 9 years, and then I took a 4-year break, and now have come back. And when I started, I had a wonderful activities and athletics director. He was very, very kind man. His name was Troy Stein. And we were doing Grease. We were getting ready to do Grease. And I remember applying for the rights. And they were, I think at that point, I maybe had like an $8,000 budget to do a musical or some. It was smaller than it is now. And I went to him and said, I just applied for the rights for Grease. They want to charge me $6,000 just to do the show. And he went, "What?" I said, "Yeah." And to his everlasting credit, we sat down and he goes, "Okay, talk me through this. I don't know how this works. My world is sports. I don't know how theater works. So talk me through this." And I did. And I talked him through the formula that the publishing companies use to assign, to rent rights and royalties for shows and all this kind of stuff. And he increased our budget to help with that. During Greece, our sound system basically crapped out on us. Um, I don't think there was one show where the Teen Angels mic worked, which was terrible because he had a beautiful voice. And God bless Tim Beckler, our orchestra conductor who was there then, would hear it and would immediately like pull the band way down so you could at least hear him a little bit. But the community rallied. They all were like, "What can we do?" And we have a great booster club at our high school that actually supports all sports activities and arts. Anyone can go to the booster club for money, which is great. And we went to them and said, "We need like 30 grand to update our sound system if we don't want what happened in Greece to happen again." And they at that time did a big gala fundraiser every spring, and they raised the money for us to update our sound system. And then again with John, and now who he was our athletic director and then transitioned into activities. So we have two separate positions, which we're very, very lucky to have.
And
Um,
John he is amazing.
yeah,
Like he
he's
is,
so student centered.
yeah.
Everything is about the kids and their experience and what are they taking out of this, and which is exactly where in educational theater your focus should be. Um, so yeah, we've been very lucky. Um, but I was doing a little bit of research because I knew you were going to ask about this. Um, the education, like I've mentioned, the Educational Theater Association, they're kind of the national association for theater teachers, and there's also the student arm, which is the International Thespian Society. Um, but EDTA does a lot of advocacy and research work on behalf of theater education in the US. And they did a trends in theater education survey. They started this a couple years ago, exploring the climate of school theater programs nationwide. And one of the things that they asked about was funding. Um, and I'm gonna just read from the website so I don't misrepresent anything. EDTA estimates that the typical cost to stage a school musical, which includes licensing, ticketing, costumes, props, sets, and other equipment, is about $10,000. And in our case, that's not even counting paying your staff. In our school, we have the budget for the production, and then we have contracts or the teacher's contract for the director, the choreographer, the costumer, the technical director, etc. Um, it says, yet many programs are largely self-funded, a testament to the resourcefulness and dedication of theater educators in their communities. Um, More than half of the respondents to this survey, 51%, say they receive little to no funding from their school districts for their theater programs. 21% receive between $1,000 to $4,000, and about a third receive more than $4,000. We in my district, and I know a number of other districts here in the Twin Cities metro area, are very, very fortunate to be funded the way we are. We're also very fortunate that when we do fundraisers, our community backs us up and they support us. But that is not the case for everybody. I think a lot of times when you get out of major metropolitan areas and you get into um, greater Minnesota, more rural areas, that obviously decreases. I know money was I graduated from Hibbing High School, which for again those listening, is northern Minnesota. It's a small town up on the Iron Range, don't you know? And and money was always a thing. Like, what do we actually have money to do? Um, the idea, like, trying to think, when we did The Play That Goes Wrong 2 years ago. Just a great show. If you've not seen it, go see it. if a community theater does it, if a high school does it, whatever, go see it because you will laugh yourself sick, um, in the best possible way. But I was able to hire a professional fight choreographer because there's so much physical stuff that happens in this show. Um, I can't say the show that I'm looking at doing this coming spring because we don't have permission to do it yet. But I'm in talks with the Heart of the Beast Puppet and Mask Theater because there's an element of that show that might have really, we could do some cool stuff with shadow puppetry and some other things. Um, and whether that money comes from, our budget or it comes from fundraising, I think we'll be able to do it. That kind of thing in other schools is a pipe dream, and it shouldn't be, because it's such an incredible opportunity for kids to expand and to try new things. And um I don't know, we want our kids to have the best possible experience, but in order to do that, we've got to pony up a little bit.
We've got to
I think
prioritize it. We've
I
got
was
to
going to say, I
prioritize
think
it.
we've got to, people give a lot of lip service to the importance of the arts. Um, as Monica pointed out earlier, we looked at what happened during the pandemic and how so much of what people relied on was art, was entertainment, was actors and filmmakers and those folks.
My son and my husband were both in separate productions online on Zoom. That they had the rehearsals and they did the performance on Zoom.
Yeah,
And that was so helpful for them just to have that whole
that outlet.
process to kind of
Mm-hmm.
take their mind off of the fact that we were sitting here twiddling our thumbs every
Mm-hmm.
day.
And I think that if we're gonna talk about the importance of arts education writ large, but specifically theater education, then we've got to put our money where our mouth is. If this is important enough to us, and people say that it is, then people have to get out and they've got to talk to their local school boards. They've got to talk to their superintendents. They've got to talk to their building administration and say, why aren't you doing this? How are you funding these arts programs? What are you offering these kids? Um, it's expensive, yes, but like I said, theater is the true collaborative art form in the sense that it pulls in all the others. Um, it lines up perfectly with, in education we talk about the 21st century skills, the 4 C's: creativity, collaboration, communication, and critical thinking. Theater does all of those. You're building empathy. um, Kids who are involved in arts programming writ large perform better on standardized tests, and we all know how much school districts love standardized test data. um, there's so much evidence to suggest that investing in theater education is going to, your return on investment is practically incalculable. Um, so let's put our money where our mouths are. Let's fund it.
And one thing Monica says, and I hope she can speak to this, but one of the favorite things that I hear her say about her experience as a teacher is that the most important thing that she taught her kids were to be good little humans.
Mhm.
And that just struck me, Monica, as because you were a music teacher, right? But at the same time, the priority is so much, even it explodes beyond just the music and into the holistic part of these children and teaching them not just music, but on so many different intellectual and
I,
emotional and
I always felt
psychological
that was a
levels.
fundamental part of my job, was to teach them to be good human beings. And I always told the kids that there's really just one rule, and that's to be kind, because that encompasses everything else. You don't need to say, take turns. You don't need to say don't hit. You don't need to say tell the truth, because if you are being kind, that covers all the other bases. And the collaboration in both music and theater just requires you to interact with other human beings, and to interact successfully with other human beings, you just need to be kind. Be a decent human.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Don't be an asshole.
I would put that on a
Don't be
right.
an
I would put that on
asshole,
a t-shirt.
That's probably
right?
the high
Don't be
school
an
version of it,
asshole.
is don't be an asshole.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, Jen, I think we're getting close to the end here.
Mhm.
I thoroughly have enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
It's been amazing to see a different side of you and hear this side, because a lot of times we were working together professionally and then we talk to each other as friends, so we're talking more about personal stuff and not about
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
professional side, and I never really learned a lot about the teacher's side of you. So that
Hmm.
has been great, and giving you and Monica the opportunity to kind of go back and forth because you both have similar backgrounds, because you both
Hmm.
teach the arts. But what would be your moonshot? In other words, if you could accomplish anything both as an educator and a theater professional, what do you think that would be?
Okay, so I'm going to make a
She
joke
hates
first and
me.
then I'll get serious. People accuse teachers of trying to like brainwash kids that you're, that like you're
Indoctrinate.
whatever. What's the phrase they use? I'm not thinking of it right now. Yes, indoctrinate. Yes. And I want to look at those people and be like, bitch, if I could indoctrinate these children, they would wear deodorant. They would put their name on the top of their assignments. There
At
are
the
so
elementary
many
level,
things.
I would say
Like,
if I could indoctrinate
yeah.
the kids,
Okay.
they
Um,
wouldn't be licking the doorknobs.
right? If I could indoctrinate high school boys, they would stop touching each other in the middle of while I'm teaching. Like, you know, Pride Month, you do you. Boo. You do you outside of school in your basement, in the backseat of your car, you do you. Don't do that in my classroom, please.
Right.
There's a proper place for that. And the middle of the Great Gatsby is not it. Friends,
No.
that's not it. Um, but okay, so that's my joke. Moonshot. It's hard sometimes to think about that because I feel like in education we're just in the moment constantly, and you're responding to what's right in front of you. And so thinking forward is sometimes a luxury, I think. Um, like I'm thinking forward right now, but I'm thinking forward to next year. What's coming next? Um, Moonshot.
And just so people know, in Minnesota, we are just like literally in the past week ending our school year.
Yeah, I finished
So
on it's Tuesday right now. I had my last day with kids last week on Thursday. So
yeah.
fresh into summer vacation, much needed, and brain fry is real. Um, I posted this the other day.
Oh my
There is
God,
no tired like
100%,
end of year
yes.
teacher tired. Monica, am I right? Yeah, it is.
And May
It is
is
like no
like
tired you'll ever experience in
942
your whole
days.
life. Um, and you need to do
Yes.
5,072 things in those 942 days. Like it's
Monica
insane.
actually has a really cool, just to give you a second here to think a little bit more, but
Yeah.
Monica's got this really cute TikTok that she filmed at her school where it was like school's out for summer and the teachers love it. And it's all the teachers like dancing in the halls and running out the front door of the school and
We
celebrating the fact
used
that it was
to
summertime.
we used to go to karaoke after graduation. Um, and we go do karaoke at the High Timber Lodge in Chanhassen, which is since closed down, which is very sad. It makes me very upset. But we would, one of our old principals started the tradition of we would all get up at one point in the night after a few beverages, all like 30 of us that are in this teeny tiny bar, and sing School's Out for Summer by Alice Cooper.
That
So
is
it was
so
fun.
awesome.
In my classroom, I want kids to gain the skills and the agency to think critically, to be able to look at what's going on in the world around them, what they're reading, what they're viewing, what they're seeing, who they're talking to, what they're listening to, and respond to it in a way that is critical, not cynical critical, but just that they really are actually thinking through it. Um, and that they are able to approach the world with compassion, with empathy, with nuance, I think is something we're missing. Everything going back to the politi- oh, can't say it again. Politicization.
Politicized.
How everything is political. Um, they're, they're everything has become so all or nothing. And I think it's so important for citizens, not just kids, but citizens, but kids are our future citizens, to understand that it doesn't have to be that way and that you can find compromise and there is nuance and that you can stake out a position on something that isn't radical, that is actually reasonable and is thoughtful and takes multiple perspectives into consideration. So educationally, that's what I'd like to see, that we can get to that point with all kids, not just the kids who are willing to do it. Theater. My head tends to be just in my program, but I think writ large, I want to see theater just continue to be a safe space for all kids. And that whether that is a safe space for, I mean, I wanted to continue to be a safe space for LGBTQ plus kids, for students of color, for students of varied economic backgrounds. I want to, this is maybe going to sound weird, but I'll explain it. I mean, I want theater to be a safe space for the straight boys. Come do theater, explore your emotions. Like, just because you do this doesn't mean you're one thing or the other. There's many more ways to be male, to be masculine, just like there's many ways to be female, to be feminine, that don't necessarily revolve around competition and aggression and all those other things. That you can be male and also be in community and to show compassion and those sorts of things. And that's something I'd like to see happen. I don't know how to make it happen. But it's something I think about a lot, because I think that would just we're here for all kids, every single stinking one. And that includes, everybody. So how do we continue to hold the door open and welcome people in and help them see the value in that?
Well, I think we could do a whole damn podcast on the crisis of young men right now. But I digress.
Yeah, that
Well,
was a bit of
and
a
it's real.
digression on my part too, but it is something that I think
It's
about.
real.
I wish we had spent more time
No,
on
I
that.
think
Oh, it totally is.
final thoughts for me. Thanks for being here and bringing your perspective and doing what you do, because as a teacher of 30 years that just retired last year, I know that it has gotten harder and harder as the years have gone by. And so thank you for continuing to do what you do. It's important work.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Thank you guys for having me. I'm really flattered that you asked and was happy to participate and jump in. I love
I was so
talking, in case you
excited that
didn't
you
notice.
said yes. No, I was so excited when you said yes. I mean, one of the things that I'm really enjoying about this whole thing, and we're doing another podcast next week, or on the
Mhm.
18th, we're recording. Do you know Cher UF? She does a lot of local theater. She's a
Mm-mm.
special ed teacher.
Okay.
Just having all these different contacts in my life and
Mhm.
being able to call in those favors and having you say yes is
Yeah.
amazing. But we want to give our readers and our viewers just a very diverse
Mhm.
amount of content that, theater's not going to be everybody's bag, but you know what? A lot of our viewers are theater and music people. And I
Mhm.
think that there are not enough podcasts out there about theater and
Mhm.
music education. So
Mhm.
I think that they'll enjoy this. And,
I hope so.
it means a lot to me that you took the time away from your day. I know you're busy and I know we're under time constraints, and Monica has got a hard out not too long from now. So I guess I'll just wrap up by saying thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you too, Monica, for doing what you do. I mean, Monica's often talked about going back and substitute teaching because
Oh, bless you.
she enjoys it so much. But thank you guys for doing what you do. Thank you for seeing these kids and what they need and being there for them and giving them and holding space for them
Mhm.
to, in Monica's case, to help them become better little humans and feel safe to be authentic. And for you, Jen, as they get older and they're discovering, because at 30, I didn't know who I was. I mean, it's this discovery process of who we are and
Mhm.
what it's going to take for us to live our life authentically, because that's the only way to be happy, right? Is to learn to live our life authentically. And so thank you so much, both of you, and for holding that space for these kids and realizing the importance of the arts and making that your calling. I mean, that's huge because the pay ain't great, you know?
It would be nice though.
We don't do
Yeah.
this for the money.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I could
Yeah.
say that I
No.
did, but yeah, it
I
would be lovely.
I
But
really hate that
yeah,
meme
that's
that
not what we
says
do.
teachers aren't in it for the income; they're in it for the outcome. I'm like, can't we have both?
Yeah, why not
Right?
both?
Right.
Like this doesn't have to be an either or. This can be a both and.
Exactly. And I'd like to thank our readers and our viewers and listeners for joining us for today. We hope that you
Mhm.
found this content useful and that you found some meaning in it. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the bell to receive notifications every time something drops. Follow us on all of our social media. We're on Substack, obviously, Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, TikTok. You can find us at the Politics Chicks. And I'm going to try to twist Jen's arm to get her to write a guest article for our Substack because
We'll see.
it might
Figure
be.
what's
So
not gonna happen.
I'm doing it
Peer
publicly so you
pressure.
can get back at me.
Public peer pressure, peer pressure.
Yes.
This would be an example, though, of positive peer pressure, I think.
Exactly. So thanks for joining us today. And
Mhm.
Jen, we hope that you can come back in the future.
I would love to. I would absolutely love to. This has been a joy and a pleasure. Thank you both for what you do as well, and keeping all of us informed and sane
Damn
during
it.
these unprecedented times.
Right.
God damn it.
All right.
Thanks,
Okay.
y'all.
Thanks for joining us this week, and
Thank you.
we'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye.